Words possess an extraordinary power to shape human thought, inspire revolutions, and define civilizations. The course of history has been guided as much by the sword as by the pen, and among those who have wielded words to their fullest potential, few stand as tall as William Shakespeare and Marcus Aurelius. Though separated by over a millennium and vastly different cultural contexts, both left behind enduring legacies through the written word. One through the grandeur of poetry and drama, the other through the introspection of philosophy. Their writings continue to resonate across centuries, offering profound insights into human nature, morality, and the meaning of existence itself. Language is the foundation of civilization. Through it, humans record knowledge, express emotions, and pass down ideas that transcend generations. From the oral traditions of ancient cultures to the intricate narratives of modern literature, words have shaped our understanding of the world. Philosophy, too, is deeply rooted in language. It is a discipline built upon articulation, where clarity of thought finds expression through well-crafted arguments and reflections. The way people communicate ideas determines their impact. A great work of literature can immortalize emotions, while a well-reasoned philosophy can transform societies. Both Shakespeare and Aurelius understood this. Their works, though vastly different in style and intent, reflect a shared mastery over language's ability to explore the depths of human experience. William Shakespeare stands as the greatest dramatist in history, a master of the English language who redefined storytelling. Born in 1564 in England, his words have left an indelible mark on literature, theater, and even everyday speech. His plays capture the full spectrum of human emotions: love, ambition, betrayal, revenge, despair, and redemption, brought to life through an unparalleled command of poetic expression. Whether in the tragic soliloquies of Hamlet or the persuasive rhetoric of Julius Caesar, Shakespeare's ability to craft dialogue that resonates across time is unmatched. His sonnets, too, elevate language to a form of art that explores themes of love, mortality, and the passage of time. Even today, phrases he coined are woven into everyday conversation, a testament to the staying power of his words. His works have been translated into every major language, adapted into countless films and performances, and studied across cultures. The reason for this longevity lies in his deep understanding of human nature, something that connects all people, regardless of era or geography. Marcus Aurelius, in contrast, was not a playwright or poet, but a philosopher and emperor, whose words survive not in grand performances, but in quiet reflections. Born in 121 AD, he ruled Rome during a turbulent period, facing external wars and internal strife, all while remaining committed to the principles of Stoic philosophy. His greatest work, Meditations, was never intended for publication. It was a personal journal, written as a means of self-discipline and contemplation, yet has become one of the most influential philosophical texts ever written. In it, he grapples with the impermanence of life, the importance of virtue, and the necessity of accepting fate. Unlike Shakespeare, who dramatized human emotions through fictional narratives, Aurelius sought to master them through rational thought. His words do not seek to entertain, but to instruct. They provide guidance on how to live with integrity, remain steadfast in the face of adversity, and cultivate inner peace. Despite their differences, Shakespeare and Aurelius share a remarkable commonality. They were both observers of human nature. Shakespeare explored it through drama, constructing characters whose dilemmas reflect universal truths. Aurelius examined it through philosophy, urging self-discipline and wisdom in the face of life's inevitable challenges. Both understood that life is transient, that suffering is inevitable, and that power, whether political or emotional, is fleeting. Their words reflect an acute awareness of morality and ethics, urging readers to reflect on their actions and the consequences they bring. Whether through the tortured conscience of Macbeth or the disciplined mind of a Stoic emperor, both figures teach the value of introspection and self-awareness. A comparison between Shakespeare and Aurelius is not merely an academic exercise. It is an exploration of two distinct yet complementary ways of understanding the world. Literature and philosophy, though different in approach, serve the same fundamental purpose: to interpret human experience and provide meaning. Shakespeare's plays show people as they are, flawed, passionate, torn between desires and duties. Aurelius' writings show people as they should strive to be, resilient, virtuous, unshaken by misfortune. One presents human nature in all its beauty and tragedy, while the other offers a framework to navigate it with wisdom. Their insights remain profoundly relevant in the modern world, where the same struggles persist, albeit in different forms. Power, ambition, love, betrayal, suffering, and the search for meaning. These are not confined to the past, but continue to define human life today. The endurance of their words is a testament to the timeless power of language. Shakespeare's plays are still performed worldwide, proving that his themes are as relevant now as they were in the Elizabethan era. Meditations remains a guide for leaders, thinkers, and ordinary individuals seeking wisdom. In an age where information is abundant but wisdom is scarce, their works remind us of the importance of reflection, self-examination, and the impact of the words we choose to speak and write. Shakespeare shows us the depth of human emotions. Aurelius teaches us how to master them. Together, they represent two of the most profound ways to engage with existence. One through the beauty of storytelling, the other through the rigor of philosophy. Their words have outlived their time, their empires, and even their own identities, proving that true power lies not in kingship or fame, but in the enduring influence of thought expressed through language. William Shakespeare was born in 1564 in Stratford-upon-Avon, a quiet market town in Warwickshire, England. The period into which he was born, known as the Elizabethan era, was one of great cultural and intellectual flourishing. It was a time of exploration, with the expansion of the British Empire and an age of artistic innovation, particularly in literature and theater. The Renaissance ideals that had swept through Europe reached England in full force, fueling an environment where poetry, drama, and philosophy thrived. This was the world that shaped Shakespeare's imagination. His early years were spent in Stratford, where he was baptized in Holy Trinity Church. His father, John Shakespeare, was a prosperous glove maker and alderman, while his mother, Mary Arden, came from a well-respected family. Despite his father's success, financial difficulties later plagued the family, possibly affecting Shakespeare's prospects. He likely attended the local grammar school, King's New School, where he would have studied Latin, rhetoric, and classical literature. Though he did not pursue higher education, his works reflect a deep knowledge of history, politics, human psychology, and the nuances of language, suggesting a self-taught intellectual hunger. Little is known about Shakespeare's life between his school years and his arrival in London's theatrical scene. This period, often referred to as the lost years, has led to much speculation. Some theories suggest he worked as a school teacher, traveled across Europe, or even joined a troupe of actors. By the 1590s, however, he had firmly established himself in London's thriving theater scene, quickly rising in prominence as a playwright and actor. His early plays, including Titus Andronicus, Henry VI, and Richard III, displayed his talent for dramatic storytelling and poetic expression. Shakespeare's emergence coincided with a golden age of English theater. The late 16th century saw the rapid rise of playhouses and acting companies, transforming drama into a major cultural force. Before this period, medieval theater had primarily focused on morality plays and religious performances, but the influence of Renaissance humanism introduced a new depth to dramatic storytelling. The establishment of professional theaters like the Theatre, the Rose, and, most notably, the Globe, revolutionized the art form. The Globe Theatre became synonymous with Shakespeare's work. Built in 1599 by the Lord Chamberlain's men, the acting company with which Shakespeare was closely associated, the Globe was a marvel of its time. Its open-air structure allowed for dynamic performances, with audiences ranging from commoners who stood in the pit to aristocrats seated in the galleries. Shakespeare's plays were crafted with this setting in mind, incorporating soliloquies that directly engage the audience and rich visual elements that made full use of the stage. The theater was a place where different social classes converged, united by the power of storytelling. During his prolific career, Shakespeare penned tragedies, comedies, and histories, each revealing different facets of human nature. His tragedies, such as Hamlet, Macbeth, and King Lear, delve into themes of power, fate, and the complexities of the human condition. Hamlet presents a prince torn between action and introspection, haunted by the weight of his father's murder. The play's exploration of existential doubt, revenge, and morality remains relevant to this day. Macbeth, on the other hand, is a study of unchecked ambition and the devastating consequences of moral corruption. The supernatural elements, witches, prophecies, and hallucinations, reinforce the theme of fate's influence on human actions. King Lear is a tragic meditation on power, loyalty, and the frailty of human relationships, depicting a ruler who loses everything due to his blindness and arrogance. While his tragedies capture the darker aspects of human existence, Shakespeare's comedies offer a counterbalance with their wit, playful deception, and sharp social observations. Works like A Midsummer Night's Dream, Much Ado About Nothing, and Twelfth Night explore themes of love, mistaken identity, and the absurdities of human behavior. His histories, such as Henry IV, Henry V, and Richard III, examine leadership, national identity, and the burdens of kingship. These plays, often rooted in historical events, provided audiences with reflections on the nature of power and its consequences. What distinguishes Shakespeare's writing is his unparalleled command of language. His works blend poetic beauty with deep philosophical insight, weaving together elements of rhetoric, imagery, and dramatic tension. His use of iambic pentameter gives his plays a rhythmic quality, while his mastery of metaphor and wordplay adds layers of meaning. His characters speak in language that is both elevated and accessible, capable of profound introspection and raw emotion. He expanded the expressive possibilities of the English language, coining words and phrases that have become ingrained in everyday speech. At the heart of Shakespeare's work is an enduring fascination with human struggles. His characters are neither wholly good nor entirely evil. They're complex beings shaped by their desires, fears, and choices. His exploration of themes such as betrayal, justice, love, and mortality resonates across cultures and generations. His plays continue to be studied, performed, and adapted, proving that his insights into human nature are as relevant now as they were in his time. Marcus Aurelius was born in 121 AD into a world of power and privilege. Yet his legacy is not one of conquest or political maneuvering alone, but of wisdom, introspection, and resilience. As the last of Rome's 5 good emperors, he ruled during a period of both great expansion and great turmoil, leaving behind not just a history of governance, but a personal record of philosophical reflection that continues to inspire generations. His life was shaped by his deep commitment to Stoic philosophy, a belief system that guided him through war, plague, and political instability. From a young age, Marcus showed intellectual promise. He was adopted into the ruling family by Emperor Antoninus Pius, who ensured that he received the best possible education. He studied under the greatest minds of his time, including the Stoic philosopher Junius Rusticus, who introduced him to the works of Epictetus. Unlike many rulers who were trained primarily in military and administrative matters, Marcus developed a philosophical mindset that emphasized self-discipline, rational thought, and moral duty. Even as he ascended to power, he remained devoted to the principles of Stoicism, seeking to govern not with ambition but with wisdom. His reign began in 161 AD, marking the start of nearly 2 decades of leadership in one of Rome's most challenging periods. The empire was vast, stretching from Britain to the Middle East, and maintaining stability required constant vigilance. Unlike his predecessors, who had enjoyed relative peace, Marcus faced continual warfare, particularly against Germanic tribes along the northern borders. His time as emperor was also marked by the Antonine Plague, a devastating epidemic that swept through the empire, weakening both the military and the economy. In the face of these challenges, Marcus turned not to despair, but to philosophy. He saw suffering as inevitable and sought to meet it with resilience, drawing on Stoic teachings that emphasized endurance, self-control, and acceptance of. Despite the external struggles, his greatest contribution was not in the realm of military or political affairs, but in the quiet pages of a personal journal. Meditations, written in Greek while he was on military campaigns, was never intended for publication. It was a private exercise in self-examination, a way for him to reinforce the Stoic principles he sought to live by. The work consists of reflections on virtue, the impermanence of life, and the need to remain steadfast in the face of hardship. He constantly reminded himself that external events were beyond his control, but his reactions to them were within his power. The core themes of Meditations revolve around the transient nature of existence, the importance of self-mastery, and the necessity of accepting one's fate. Marcus emphasized that suffering was a part of life, but it did not have to lead to despair. Instead, by cultivating inner strength and focusing on what one could control, an individual could find peace even in the most difficult circumstances. He rejected the pursuit of wealth, fame, and power as ends in themselves, viewing them as distractions from true wisdom. To him, the only true good was virtue, and a life well lived was one dedicated to justice, humility, and duty. His philosophy was not merely theoretical. It was tested daily in the responsibilities of leadership. As emperor, he had to make decisions that affected millions, balancing the demands of war, governance, and personal integrity. Unlike many rulers who succumbed to corruption or excess, Marcus remained committed to his principles, striving to rule with fairness and a sense of moral responsibility. His Stoic resilience allowed him to endure not only external hardships, but also personal loss, as he suffered the deaths of many of his children and the constant strain of leadership. Even as the empire faced decline, his writings remind us that true strength lies not in military might or political dominance, but in the mastery of oneself. His reflections continue to guide those who seek wisdom in adversity, proving that the struggles of ancient Rome are not so different from the challenges of the modern world. Through his words, Marcus Aurelius transcends his time, offering a timeless lesson in endurance, acceptance, and the pursuit of virtue. Words have long been wielded as tools of power, shaping history through persuasion, inspiration, and manipulation. Whether in the grand speeches of Shakespearean kings or the quiet reflections of Marcus Aurelius, language has the ability to lead, unite, and even deceive. The contrast between Shakespeare's dramatic rulers and Aurelius' philosophical governance offers a fascinating study of how words influence leadership. From Henry V's rousing battle cry to Iago's cunning deceit, from Julius Caesar's public rhetoric to Aurelius' Stoic reflections, the power of words has determined the fate of leaders and their people alike. Even in the modern world, the way leaders communicate continues to shape societies, demonstrating that the lessons found in literature and philosophy remain profoundly relevant. Rhetoric, the art of persuasion, has been a cornerstone of leadership for centuries. Shakespeare, in crafting the voices of kings, generals, and statesmen, demonstrated the immense impact of words on the course of history. One of the most striking examples is Henry V's speech before the Battle of Agincourt in Henry V. Facing overwhelming odds, Henry rallies his soldiers with the famous St. Crispin's Day speech, transforming fear into courage through words alone. He speaks of honor, of shared brotherhood in battle, and of future glory, ensuring that his men see themselves as part of something greater than their own individual fates. His speech is not merely a call to arms, but an exercise in leadership, proving that words have the power to shape reality. A different kind of rhetorical mastery appears in Julius Caesar, where Shakespeare explores the dual nature of persuasion, both noble and dangerous. The funeral speeches of Brutus and Mark Antony serve as masterclasses in rhetoric, each using language to shape public perception. Brutus appeals to reason, presenting himself as a patriot who killed Caesar for the good of Rome. Yet it is Mark Antony, with his repeated phrase, "Brutus is an honorable man," who ultimately sways the crowd, using irony and emotional appeal to incite rebellion. Shakespeare demonstrates that rhetoric is not inherently good or evil. It is simply a tool that can be used for justice or manipulation. In contrast, Marcus Aurelius offers a different vision of leadership, one grounded in restraint rather than theatrical persuasion. As a Stoic, he believed that true power did not come from the ability to manipulate others, but from mastering oneself. Unlike Shakespeare's kings, who often wield words as weapons, Aurelius used them as instruments of personal discipline and moral guidance. His Meditations is not a collection of grand speeches, but a private dialogue with himself, a reminder to govern with wisdom, patience, and virtue. Rather than seeking to inspire armies or win public favor, he focused on the internal strength required to lead justly. The difference between Shakespearean rhetoric and Stoic leadership becomes even clearer in the examination of persuasion and manipulation. Shakespeare presents figures who use words to gain power, often through deception. Nowhere is this more evident than in the character of Iago from Othello. Iago is a master of manipulation, using carefully chosen words to plant seeds of doubt and jealousy in Othello's mind. His ability to control perception, to twist truth into falsehood, highlights the darker side of language's power. He demonstrates that words, when wielded without morality, can destroy as easily as they can inspire. Julius Caesar himself embodies another side of this contrast. He is both a master of rhetoric and a victim of it. His rise to power is in part due to his ability to command with words, to project an image of strength and destiny. Yet his downfall is orchestrated through the persuasive words of those around him, Brutus, Cassius, and ultimately Mark Antony. Shakespeare's portrayal of Caesar's fate underscores a key theme. While words can elevate a leader, they can also bring about their ruin. Marcus Aurelius, in his writings, warns against the dangers of manipulation and empty rhetoric. He viewed words as tools for truth, not deception. His Stoic philosophy rejects the pursuit of power for its own sake and instead emphasizes virtue and reason. Unlike Shakespeare's characters, who often use language to shape external events, Aurelius focused on using words to shape his own mind. He believed that true leadership came not from the ability to control others, but from the ability to govern oneself with wisdom and integrity. The lessons from both Shakespeare and Aurelius have profound implications for modern leadership. In today's world, political leaders, corporate executives, and public figures continue to use language to shape public perception. The way a leader speaks, whether through inspiring speeches, carefully crafted statements, or manipulative rhetoric, determines their legacy. The modern equivalent of Henry V's speech can be seen in moments of national crisis, where leaders seek to unite people through words of resilience. Meanwhile, the deceptive tactics of Iago can be found in political propaganda and misinformation, where language is used not to enlighten but to obscure the truth. Shakespeare and Aurelius offer two contrasting yet complementary models for leadership. Shakespearean rhetoric reminds us that words have immense power to move people, to inspire action, and to define history. Yet Aurelius warns us that without wisdom and virtue, this power can be dangerous. The best leaders, then, are those who combine the eloquence of Shakespeare's kings with the moral clarity of Aurelius. They recognize that language is not merely a tool for persuasion, but a responsibility, one that should be wielded with integrity and purpose. As the world continues to be shaped by the words of those in power, the insights of these two great minds remain as relevant as ever. Whether through the grand oratory of public speeches or the quiet reflection of personal philosophy, the way leaders use language will always determine the course of history. Shakespeare and Marcus Aurelius, though separated by time, culture, and discipline share a profound understanding of human nature and morality. Shakespeare explored these themes through the complexities of his characters, dramatizing the internal conflicts and moral struggles that define human existence. His works capture the psychological depth of individuals grappling with ambition, jealousy, fate, and conscience. Marcus Aurelius, on the other hand, approached these same concerns through philosophy, offering a Stoic perspective on the impermanence of life, the acceptance of suffering, and the importance of virtue. Though their methods differed, Shakespeare through drama and Aurelius through reflection, their insights into the human condition reveal striking similarities. In Shakespeare's plays, characters are often driven by internal struggles that reflect larger moral and existential questions. Hamlet, for instance, presents one of the most famous explorations of human doubt and contemplation. The titular character wrestles with the nature of existence itself, questioning whether life is worth living in his famous soliloquy. To be or not to be, that is the question. His uncertainty, his philosophical reflections on mortality, and his inability to act decisively make him one of literature's most psychologically complex figures. He embodies the tension between thought and action, between moral obligation and personal hesitation. His struggle is not merely a political one, but a deeply human one. How does one live in a world filled with uncertainty and suffering? Similarly, Macbeth delves into the dark consequences of ambition and moral corruption. Unlike Hamlet, who hesitates, Macbeth acts swiftly, driven by an unrelenting desire for power. Yet, his ambition does not bring him peace, but rather plunges him into paranoia and guilt. Life's but a walking shadow, he laments in his final days, realizing that his ruthless pursuit of power has led to an empty existence. Shakespeare captures the devastating effects of unchecked ambition, showing how the desire for control can ultimately lead to self-destruction. Macbeth's tragedy is not just that he seeks power, but that he does so at the expense of his own humanity. In Othello, Shakespeare explores another powerful force that shapes human behavior: jealousy. Othello, a man of honor and status, is gradually undone by the manipulation of Iago, whose words plant seeds of doubt and suspicion. His descent into jealousy leads him to commit an irreversible crime, tragically realizing too late that he has been deceived. Shakespeare demonstrates the power of language not just as a means of persuasion, but as a force capable of shaping reality. Othello's downfall is not caused by external forces alone, but by his own internal weaknesses, his inability to separate truth from illusion, emotion from reason. His tragedy serves as a reminder of the vulnerability of human nature and the dangers of allowing emotion to override rational thought. Marcus Aurelius, though writing from philosophical rather than dramatic perspective, touches on many of these same themes. His Meditations is filled with reflections on human imperfection, the fleeting nature of life, and the importance of maintaining inner control. Like Hamlet, Aurelius grapples with the uncertainty of existence, though he approaches it from a Stoic perspective. Instead of being paralyzed by doubt, he seeks to accept the limitations of human knowledge and find peace in the acceptance of fate. He reminds himself that suffering is inevitable and that the only true power one has is over their own mind. His reflections on ambition bear similarities to the downfall of Macbeth. While Macbeth seeks power as an end in itself, Aurelius warns against the illusion of control. He sees the pursuit of power as ultimately meaningless, noting that all rulers, no matter how great, are eventually forgotten. "Soon you will be ashes or bones," he writes, emphasizing the transience of worldly success. He argues that true fulfillment does not come from external achievements, but from living a life of virtue. Unlike Macbeth, who is consumed by his desires, Aurelius advocates for detachment from ambition, recognizing that seeking power for its own sake leads only to suffering. On the subject of jealousy and perception, Aurelius' philosophy offers a direct counterpoint to Othello's tragic downfall. He emphasizes the idea that external events and the words of others have no power over an individual unless they allow them to. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Had Othello embraced this principle, he would not have been swayed by Iago's manipulations. Aurelius believed that emotional control was the key to wisdom, and that acting impulsively on negative emotions was a failure of reason. Where Othello falls victim to external influence, Aurelius would advise detachment, rational reflection, and self-mastery. Despite their differences in approach, Shakespeare and Aurelius ultimately address the same fundamental aspects of human nature: the struggle between reason and emotion, the consequences of ambition, the impermanence of life, and the pursuit of virtue. Shakespeare dramatizes what Aurelius philosophizes. The themes that Shakespeare's characters grapple with, Hamlet's indecision, Macbeth's ambition, Othello's jealousy, are the very struggles that Aurelius seeks to understand and control through Stoic philosophy. One presents these dilemmas through action, dialogue, and tragedy, the other through introspection and meditation. Yet both reveal an essential truth about humanity: that the conflict between virtue and vice, reason and passion, wisdom and folly is timeless. Their insights remain relevant in the modern world, where individuals continue to struggle with the same dilemmas. The lessons found in Shakespeare's plays and Aurelius' writings serve as guides for understanding human behavior, morality, and the pursuit of a meaningful life. Through different lenses, both men capture the essence of what it means to be human, offering wisdom that endures across centuries. Shakespeare and Marcus Aurelius offer two distinct yet profoundly connected perspectives on fate, destiny, and free will. In Shakespeare's plays, characters struggle with the tension between predetermined fate and the power of personal choice, often leading to tragic consequences. The forces of prophecy, supernatural intervention, and seemingly unavoidable destiny loom large, yet individual decisions shape the course of events. Marcus Aurelius, by contrast, embraces a Stoic view of fate, advocating for a more fatty, the love of fate, where one accepts what happens as necessary and beyond their control, focusing instead on mastering their own response. While Shakespeare dramatizes the conflict between fate and free will, Aurelius provides a philosophical framework for understanding and accepting destiny without despair. The question remains, are we prisoners of fate, or do we shape our own destiny? Shakespeare often presents fate as an inescapable force, yet his characters still wrestle with choices that either align with or attempt to defy it. In Macbeth, the role of prophecy is central to the protagonist's downfall. The three witches tell Macbeth that he will become king, but they do not specify how or when. Upon hearing this prophecy, Macbeth is faced with a choice: to wait for fate to unfold or to take matters into his own hands. He chooses the latter, driven by ambition and spurred on by Lady Macbeth's persuasion. His decision to murder King Duncan sets off a chain of events that ultimately leads to his ruin. While fate reveals a possible future, Macbeth's choices determine how he reaches it. His tragedy lies in his belief that he must force destiny rather than allow it to manifest naturally. Had he embraced patience rather than ambition, would he still have become king? The play raises the question of whether fate is truly inevitable or whether human actions shape its outcome. A similar tension between destiny and personal choice appears in Romeo and Juliet, where the concept of star-crossed lovers suggests that the fate of the young couple is sealed from the beginning. From the opening lines, the audience is told that their love is doomed. Yet, throughout the play, it is their decisions that bring about their demise. Romeo's impulsiveness, first in his swift love for Juliet, then in killing Tybalt, and finally in taking his own life, demonstrates how personal actions can accelerate the fulfillment of fate. Juliet, too, makes crucial choices that lead to the tragedy. If they had chosen patience or caution, could they have defied their destined doom? Shakespeare presents fate as a powerful force, yet he does not depict it as absolute. Instead, his tragedy suggests that fate and free will exist in a complex, intertwined relationship. Destiny may set the stage, but human decisions determine how the story unfolds. In contrast to Shakespeare's dramatic struggles with fate, Marcus Aurelius embraces a philosophy that accepts destiny without resistance. His Stoic principle of amor fati, or love of fate, teaches that individuals cannot control external events, only their reactions to them. Rather than fighting against fate, he argues, one should accept it as part of a greater natural order. In Meditations, he writes, accept whatever comes to you woven in the pattern of your destiny, for what could more aptly fit your needs. Unlike Shakespeare's characters who often try to resist or manipulate fate, Aurelius urges surrender, not in defeat, but in wisdom. He does not see fate as a curse, but as a guiding force that, when embraced, leads to inner peace. This perspective is particularly evident in his thoughts on suffering and adversity. He acknowledges that hardship is an unavoidable part of life, but insists that suffering arises not from events themselves, but from one's perception of them. In Shakespeare's tragedies, characters often fall because they react destructively to fate. Macbeth sees prophecy as a command to act. Romeo sees obstacles as insurmountable. Othello succumbs to jealousy and despair. Aurelius, however, would argue that their suffering comes not from fate, but from their failure to master their own minds. He insists that external forces, whether fortune, misfortune, or even death, are indifferent. It is how one responds to them that determines the quality of life. The difference between Shakespeare's tragedies and Aurelius' philosophy is perhaps most striking in their views on control. Shakespeare's characters often believe they must take drastic action to either fulfill or escape their fate, whereas Aurelius maintains that the only thing within human control is the self. This contrast is evident in how they approach the theme of death. In Shakespeare's world, death is often feared, fought against, or seen as a cruel end to ambition, love, or honor. Macbeth sees life as a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing, expressing despair at the futility of his actions. Romeo and Juliet view death as an escape from a fate they cannot bear. Aurelius, on the other hand, views death with calm acceptance. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. He believes that fearing death is irrational because it is a natural part of existence. In his Stoic perspective, resisting fate, especially the inevitability of death, only causes. Yet, despite these differences, there is an underlying connection between Shakespeare's portrayal of fate and Aurelius' Stoicism. Both acknowledge the limits of human control and the unpredictability of life. Shakespeare's characters often struggle with the realization that they cannot escape fate, and their downfall often results from trying too hard to do so. Aurelius simply offers a solution to this struggle. Accept fate and focus only on what is within one's power. Shakespeare asks the question, are we doomed by fate, or do we create our own path? Aurelius provides an answer. Fate exists, but suffering is optional. This contrast between the two thinkers is especially relevant in modern times. People today, like Shakespeare's characters, often feel at the mercy of forces beyond their control, whether societal pressures, personal hardships, or unexpected misfortunes. Many struggle with the same question. Do I have control over my future, or am I subject to destiny? Shakespeare's works remind us of the power of human decision-making, showing how ambition, love, jealousy, and fear shape our lives. Aurelius, however, offers a perspective that allows for peace in the face of uncertainty. He teaches that while we cannot always choose our circumstances, we can always choose our response. In the end, Shakespeare and Aurelius do not offer opposing views, but rather complementary ones. Shakespeare explores the human struggle against fate, portraying the emotional and psychological turmoil that comes with trying to control the uncontrollable. Aurelius, in contrast, provides a path to serenity, advocating for acceptance over resistance. The question of destiny, fate, and free will remains an open one, but both Shakespeare and Aurelius provide timeless insights into how one might navigate it, whether through dramatic engagement with fate or through stoic detachment from it. Shakespeare and Marcus Aurelius offer two profoundly different, yet deeply insightful perspectives on love, loss, and the human experience. Shakespeare's works capture the intensity of love, its passion, joy, betrayal, and grief, while Marcus Aurelius, through his Stoic philosophy, presents a vision of love tempered by detachment, acceptance, and endurance. These contrasting viewpoints reflect two fundamental ways of understanding love: as an overwhelming force that shapes destinies, or as a fleeting but inevitable part of life that must be met with resilience. Shakespeare's portrayal of love is one of raw emotion and poetic beauty. His plays and sonnets immortalize love in its most passionate and tragic forms. Nowhere is this more evident than in Romeo and Juliet, where love is both the highest ecstasy and the deepest sorrow. Romeo and Juliet's love is immediate and consuming, transcending familial conflict and social constraints. Yet, it is also doomed from the start. The phrase "star-crossed lovers" suggests that fate has already determined their tragic end, but the intensity of their love drives them to defy the world around them. Their choices, secret marriage, desperate escape plans, and ultimately, their suicides, are fueled by their all-encompassing devotion. In this portrayal, love is not merely an emotion, but a force beyond reason, leading to both rapture and destruction. Beyond youthful passion, Shakespeare also examines love through the lens of betrayal and loyalty. In Othello, love turns to jealousy, and devotion transforms into tragic obsession. Othello's deep love for Desdemona is poisoned by Iago's manipulations, revealing the fragile nature of trust in romantic relationships. Shakespeare presents love as something easily corrupted by insecurity and doubt. The tragedy is not just in Othello's loss of Desdemona, but in how love itself can become a weapon used to manipulate and destroy. Similarly, in King Lear, love takes on a different form: the love between a father and his children. Lear, blinded by his own vanity, mistakes flattery for love and disowns Cordelia, the daughter who truly cares for him. Only in his downfall does he realize the true nature of love, but by then, it is too late. Shakespeare suggests that love, in all its forms, is deeply intertwined with human flaws, whether it be jealousy, pride, or insecurity. Shakespeare's sonnets further explore the theme of love, offering reflections on its fleeting nature and the beauty of language in preserving it. Many of his sonnets address the passage of time and the inevitable decay of youth and beauty. Sonnet 18, one of his most famous, compares a loved one to a summer's day, concluding that while beauty fades, poetry can grant immortality, so long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. Love, in Shakespeare's view, is something that can be preserved through art, even when it is lost in life. This is a stark contrast to the Stoic perspective of Marcus Aurelius, who does not seek to immortalize love, but instead accepts its impermanence as part of the natural order. While Shakespeare revels in love's passion and turmoil, Marcus Aurelius approaches love with a quiet wisdom that aligns with his Stoic beliefs. He does not reject love, but advises against becoming overly attached to it, as attachment leads to suffering. In Meditations, he reminds himself that all things, including love and relationships, are temporary. He writes, "Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight." Unlike Shakespeare's lovers, who fight against fate to preserve love, Aurelius embraces loss as an inevitable part of existence. He believes that true love is not about clinging to others, but about appreciating them while they are present and letting them go when the time comes. Aurelius' reflections on losing loved ones are particularly striking. As emperor, he faced personal losses, including the deaths of his children and close companions. Instead of lamenting their absence, he viewed their passing as part of the natural cycle of life. He advises himself to accept loss with grace, recognizing that grief arises from attachment and expectation. Unlike Shakespeare's tragic lovers, who are consumed by their sorrow, Aurelius teaches that suffering is a choice, one that can be mitigated by changing one's perspective. To him, love should be free of dependency. One should cherish others while they are present, but not despair when they are gone. This contrast between Shakespeare's emotional intensity and Aurelius' Stoic detachment raises a fundamental question. Can we love without suffering? Shakespeare's works suggest that love, by its very nature, brings pain. The depth of feeling that makes love so powerful is also what makes loss so devastating. Whether it is the despair of Romeo and Juliet, the jealousy of Othello, or the regret of King Lear, Shakespeare presents love as an experience inseparable from human frailty. The very act of loving someone makes one vulnerable to heart. Aurelius, however, offers a different path. He argues that love does not have to lead to suffering if one accepts its impermanence from the beginning. This does not mean that love should be avoided or dismissed, but rather that it should be approached with an understanding that all things change. While Shakespeare's characters are often destroyed by love's intensity, Aurelius would suggest that their suffering arises not from love itself, but from their inability to accept its transience. He would view Romeo and Juliet's despair as unnecessary, driven by an attachment to an idealized version of love rather than an acceptance of reality. At the heart of this discussion lies a fundamental philosophical divide. Shakespeare's vision of love is deeply human. It acknowledges that emotions are messy, unpredictable, and often beyond rational control. His characters love fiercely, sometimes to their own detriment, but in doing so, they capture the richness of human experience. Aurelius, on the other hand, offers a more measured approach, advocating for a love that does not overpower reason. His Stoic philosophy teaches that while love is valuable, it should not be allowed to dictate one's peace of mind. In modern times, both perspectives remain relevant. Shakespeare's view resonates with those who see love as an essential, transformative part of life, one that should be embraced fully despite its risks. Aurelius, however, provides guidance for those who seek to navigate love with wisdom and emotional balance, helping individuals cope with loss and change without being consumed by grief. Together, these two perspectives offer a profound exploration of love's place in the human experience, one through the lens of passion and poetry, the other through the lens of wisdom and endurance. Shakespeare and Marcus Aurelius, though separated by centuries and vastly different cultural landscapes, share an unrelenting focus on death and the meaning of life. Both men grappled with the nature of mortality, yet their perspectives diverged in fundamental ways. Shakespeare, as a dramatist, explored death through the lens of human suffering, existential dread, and the tragic inevitability of fate. His characters often struggle with the knowledge of their own mortality, facing it with fear, defiance, or weary resignation. Marcus Aurelius, by contrast, approached death through the disciplined mindset of Stoic philosophy, viewing it not as something to be feared, but as a natural and necessary transition, one that should be accepted with calm rationality. Their differing views raise the timeless question of how one should confront the end of life, whether with Shakespeare's emotional depth or Aurelius' philosophical detachment. Shakespeare's exploration of death is perhaps most famously captured in Hamlet's soliloquy. To be or not to be, that is the question. In these lines, Hamlet contemplates the nature of existence itself, weighing the suffering of life against the uncertainty of death. His words capture the anxiety that accompanies human mortality. If death is an escape from pain, then why do people fear it? The possibility of an unknown afterlife, a realm from which no traveler returns, makes the prospect of death as terrifying as life's suffering. Shakespeare does not offer a resolution to this dilemma. Instead, he presents it as an eternal struggle within the human mind. Hamlet's soliloquy speaks to the universal experience of confronting one's own mortality, reflecting a deep existential crisis rather than a clear philosophical stance. Beyond Hamlet, Shakespeare repeatedly returns to the theme of death in his tragedies, often linking it to fate, ambition, and the pursuit of power. Macbeth, for example, is a man who tries to escape the limitations of mortality through ruthless ambition, only to be crushed by the weight of his own choices. As he nears his end, his final meditation on life, tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow, expresses the futility of human striving. Life, in his eyes, is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. This bleak view suggests that death renders all human achievements meaningless, reducing existence to a brief, inconsequential performance. Shakespeare presents death not just as an end, but as an overwhelming force that strips life of its illusions, leaving only emptiness in its wake. Another striking example comes in Hamlet's famous graveyard scene, where the prince holds the skull of the court jester, Yorick, and reflects on the inevitability of decay. Here, Shakespeare strips away the distinctions of class, power, and identity, reducing all human beings to the same fate, dust and bones. Even the greatest kings will one day share the same resting place as beggars. This grim acknowledgement of death's universality echoes throughout Shakespeare's works, underscoring the idea that no one, regardless of status or ambition, can escape its grasp. While Shakespeare presents death as a source of dread, confusion, and sometimes even nihilism, Marcus Aurelius takes a vastly different approach. His meditations frequently return to the concept of memento mori, the practice of remembering that one will die. But rather than lamenting this fact, he embraces it as a fundamental truth of nature. You could leave life right now, he reminds himself. Let that determine what you do and say and think. For Aurelius, death is not something to be feared, but something to be prepared for at all times. To live well, one must accept the impermanence of life and act accordingly. Aurelius' reflections on mortality are deeply rooted in the Stoic belief that everything in the universe follows a natural order. People are born, they live, they die, just as leaves fall from trees in autumn, only to be replaced by new growth in spring. The cycle of life and death is not a tragedy, but a necessary part of existence. Unlike Shakespeare's characters, who wrestle with death emotionally, Aurelius insists that death is simply another change, no different from aging or the shifting of the seasons. Death smiles at us all, he writes, but all a man can do is smile back. This calm, unshaken acceptance of mortality stands in stark contrast to the turmoil found in Shakespeare. Another key distinction lies in how each thinker views the significance of the individual life. Shakespeare often portrays death as an annihilation of meaning, reducing great figures to nothingness. Marcus Aurelius, however, takes an even more extreme stance, arguing that individual existence is inherently insignificant in the vastness of the cosmos. He frequently reminds himself that countless generations have come before and will come after, and that in the grand scheme of time, even the most powerful rulers will be forgotten. Alexander the Great and his mule driver both died, and the same thing happened to both, he states bluntly. For him, personal legacy is an illusion, and worrying about one's place in history is a futile distraction. This leads to a crucial philosophical question: how should one face death? Shakespeare presents a variety of responses: defiance, despair, resignation, while Aurelius offers a single, unwavering answer: acceptance. For Shakespeare, death is a mystery, an unknown force that looms over human existence, shaping destinies and tragedies alike. His characters struggle against it, question it, and sometimes embrace it with a heavy heart. For Aurelius, death is nothing more than the completion of life's natural cycle. There is no need for mourning or resistance, only a quiet acknowledgement that it is as inevitable as the rising and setting of the sun. Yet despite their differences, both Shakespeare and Aurelius ultimately provide insights into how we confront our own mortality. Shakespeare forces us to feel the weight of death's finality, making us grapple with its emotional and existential implications. He reminds us that death is not just an abstract concept, but a deeply personal experience, one that brings sorrow, loss, and sometimes even meaninglessness. Marcus Aurelius, on the other hand, offers a way to transcend that fear, teaching that death is neither good nor bad, but simply part of nature. His philosophy encourages people to live virtuously, to focus on what they can control, and to let go of anxieties about the inevitable. In modern times, these perspectives remain as relevant as ever. Many continue to wrestle with Shakespearean questions about life's meaning and the fear of the unknown, while others seek solace in Stoic teachings that promote inner peace in the face of mortality. Perhaps the most balanced approach is to recognize the wisdom in both views, to acknowledge the deep emotions that death stirs within us, as Shakespeare does, while also cultivating the Stoic resilience that Aurelius champions. Death is both a mystery and a certainty, a source of anguish and an opportunity for reflection. Whether we approach it with Shakespeare's poetic sorrow or Aurelius' quiet acceptance, it remains the one universal truth that unites all human beings across time. Shakespeare and Marcus Aurelius, though living in different worlds and writing in different styles, both achieved a form of immortality that few can claim: the immortality of words. Their legacies persist not through monuments or political conquests, but through the power of their language, which continues to shape human thought, culture, and philosophy centuries after their deaths. While Shakespeare's influence is woven into the fabric of literature, theater, and even everyday speech, Marcus Aurelius' philosophical reflections remain a guiding force for those seeking wisdom, resilience, and inner peace. Their works serve as testaments to the endurance of ideas and the ability of words to outlive their authors, resonating across time with undiminished relevance. The lasting impact of Shakespeare can be seen in the way his words have shaped literature and storytelling. His influence extends far beyond the stage. Modern cinema, novels, and television often draw upon his themes, character archetypes, and narrative structures. The tragic flaws of his characters, the complexity of his villains, and the emotional depth of his protagonists set a literary standard that continues to inspire writers. His works introduced new dimensions to storytelling, particularly in how human psychology and morality are explored through dialogue and soliloquy. The internal struggles of Hamlet, the unchecked ambition of Macbeth, the doomed love of Romeo and Juliet, all these elements have been reinterpreted and adapted in countless forms. Even in contemporary works, echoes of Shakespeare's themes, power, betrayal, fate, and the human condition, are evident, proving that his exploration of these timeless subjects remains unmatched. Beyond literature, Shakespeare's words have shaped the very language we speak. Countless phrases and idioms that originated in his works have entered everyday usage. All that glitters is not gold, break the ice, wild goose chase, and fair play, to name just a few. His inventive use of metaphor and his ability to capture profound truths in simple yet poetic language have given his words a life beyond the context of his plays. Whether people are aware of it or not, they continue to quote Shakespeare, incorporating his insights into their daily expressions and conversations. This linguistic legacy highlights the enduring relevance of his work, not confined to academic study, but actively shaping the way people think and communicate. Perhaps the most remarkable testament to Shakespeare's legacy is the continued performance of his plays. Few, if any, playwrights have enjoyed such an unbroken tradition of being performed and reinterpreted across centuries. His works are staged in theaters worldwide, from grand productions at the Globe Theatre to modern adaptations in various languages and cultural settings. The universality of his themes allows his stories to be reinvented in new forms while maintaining their original essence. Directors and actors continually find new ways to bring his characters to life, ensuring that his plays remain fresh and engaging even for contemporary audiences. His ability to capture the depth of human emotion and conflict ensures that each new generation finds something meaningful in his work. while Shakespeare achieved immortality through the dramatic power of his storytelling. Marcus Aurelius attained it through the quiet, introspective wisdom of his meditations. Unlike Shakespeare, who wrote for an audience, Aurelius never intended his words to be published or widely read. His reflections were personal, written as a form of self-examination and a means of reinforcing Stoic principles in his own life. Yet paradoxically, it is this deeply personal nature that makes his words so universal. His struggles with doubt, suffering, and the burdens of leadership resonate with readers across centuries, offering timeless wisdom on how to navigate life's challenges. The Meditations has endured as one of the most influential philosophical works of all time, often regarded as a guide to self-improvement and mental resilience. Its appeal lies in its practicality. Rather than presenting abstract theories, it offers direct, actionable insights into how one can cultivate inner peace, discipline, and moral clarity. Aurelius' emphasis on accepting what is beyond one's control, focusing on virtue, and maintaining a sense of duty has influenced countless thinkers, from philosophers and military leaders to modern-day psychologists and entrepreneurs. His thoughts on impermanence, suffering, and the transience of power remain particularly relevant in a world that continues to grapple with uncertainty and change. In recent years, there's been a resurgence of interest in Stoicism, with Aurelius at its center. His teachings have found new life in self-help books, leadership manuals, and even wellness movements. People seeking a framework for resilience in the face of adversity often turn to his words, finding in them a source of strength and perspective. The principles he outlined, detachment from external validation, control over one's own mind, and the pursuit of virtue, align closely with modern concepts of mindfulness and psychological well-being. His influence extends even into the corporate world, where leaders study Stoic philosophy as a means of developing emotional intelligence, decision-making skills, and a steady mindset in times of crisis. The fact that a Roman emperor's private reflections remain a cornerstone of personal development centuries later is a testament to the power of his words. Both Shakespeare and Aurelius, in their respective fields, understood the power of language, not merely as a tool for communication, but as a force capable of shaping thought, behavior, and even destiny. Shakespeare used words to explore the depths of human emotion, crafting poetic expressions of love, ambition, betrayal, and despair. Aurelius, on the other hand, used words to discipline a mind, to remind himself, and later his readers, of the principles needed to live a virtuous and meaningful life. While Shakespeare's language dazzles with its beauty and complexity, Aurelius' words are stripped of ornamentation, direct in their wisdom and clarity. What makes their words immortal is their ability to remain relevant across different ages, cultures, and societies. They wrote in vastly different contexts. Shakespeare in the vibrant world of Elizabethan England, Aurelius in the structured discipline of ancient Rome. Yet their insights continue to resonate. This universality is the true measure of their legacy. Shakespeare's plays and sonnets do not belong to any one era or audience. They are endlessly adaptable, reimagined by each new generation. Aurelius' Meditations is not confined to the Stoics of antiquity. It is read by those seeking guidance in the complexities of modern life. The power of their words lies not just in their literary or philosophical brilliance, but in their ability to speak directly to the human experience. Shakespeare understood that people are driven by emotion, ambition, and conflict, and he captured those struggles with an unmatched poetic sensibility. Aurelius understood that life is unpredictable, filled with suffering and impermanence, and he offered a way to navigate it with wisdom and resilience. Together, their works provide two complementary perspectives, one that embraces the drama of existence and one that seeks to rise above it. Their enduring influence also raises a profound question. What truly defines immortality? Is it the preservation of one's name, the endurance of one's works, or the impact one has on future generations? Shakespeare and Aurelius did not seek immortality in the traditional sense. They were not conquerors, nor did they build empires. Yet their words have ensured that they are remembered long after their time. This suggests that true immortality does not come from power or wealth, but from ideas that continue to shape and inspire. Ultimately, the legacy of Shakespeare and Aurelius proves that words have the power to transcend time. They remind us that literature and philosophy are not mere intellectual pursuits, but living dialogues between the past and the present. As long as people continue to wrestle with questions of love, power, fate, and mortality, the words of Shakespeare and Aurelius will endure, offering guidance, reflection, and inspiration to all who seek them. Shakespeare and Marcus Aurelius, though separated by centuries and vastly different contexts, are two sides of the same coin when it comes to their influence on human thought. One was a playwright, weaving tales of love, ambition, power, and betrayal for the stage. The other was a philosopher-emperor, writing reflections meant only for himself, grappling with duty, morality, and the fleeting nature of existence. Despite their differences in purpose and audience, their words endure, shaping minds, inspiring generations, and offering insights into the human condition. Shakespeare was a master of emotion. He explored the depths of human passion, the torment of inner conflict, and the chaos of ambition. His characters are flawed, vulnerable, and deeply human. They love intensely, grieve profoundly, and struggle against forces larger than themselves, whether fate, power, or their own weaknesses. Hamlet's existential dread, Macbeth's blind ambition, Othello's consuming jealousy, and King Lear's tragic downfall all reflect the unpredictability of life and the fragile balance between wisdom and folly. Shakespeare did not simply tell stories. He exposed the raw intricacies of what it means to be human. Marcus Aurelius, on the other hand, sought to rise above human emotions. As a Stoic, he believed in mastering the self, accepting suffering, and focusing on what is within one's control. While Shakespeare's characters are often ruled by their emotions, Aurelius taught detachment, love without possessiveness, power without corruption, and ambition without vanity. He approached life with a sense of duty, urging himself and others to accept fate rather than fight it. His words are not about grand external struggles, but the quiet battles within the mind, the struggle for discipline, resilience, and virtue in the face of life's hardships. Yet, despite these contrasts, their teachings are not at odds with each other. Rather, they complement one another. Shakespeare's works show us what happens when emotions run unchecked, when ambition leads to destruction, and when love turns to obsession. Aurelius, in contrast, offers a way to manage those very impulses, to meet life's tragedies with equanimity, and to embrace the impermanence of all things. Together, they provide a complete picture of the human experience, the intensity of life's highs and lows, and the wisdom needed to navigate them. Their influence extends beyond literature and philosophy. Both have shaped modern psychology, leadership, and storytelling. The principles of Stoicism that Aurelius championed have found a place in contemporary psychology, particularly in mindfulness and cognitive behavioral therapy. His advice on controlling one's thoughts, focusing on what can be changed, and accepting what cannot be changed is central to modern self-improvement. People today turn to meditations for guidance in everything from handling stress to developing resilience in the face of adversity. Shakespeare, meanwhile, remains deeply embedded in storytelling and leadership. His themes of power, ambition, betrayal, and redemption serve as the foundation for countless books, films, and political speeches. Leaders study his kings and warriors to understand the complexities of power, persuasion, and the consequences of hubris. His ability to capture the subtleties of human motivation has made his works essential reading for anyone trying to understand human nature, whether in politics, business, or personal relationships. His influence is seen in the way we tell stories, structure narratives, and understand character development. What truly binds Shakespeare and Aurelius together is their understanding of the impermanence of life. Shakespeare's tragedies often remind us of the fleeting nature of existence, how quickly power fades, how love can be lost, and how even the greatest figures are ultimately undone by time or fate. Hamlet's contemplation of death, Macbeth's reflection on the meaninglessness of life, a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing, and Prospero's farewell speech in The Tempest all express the transient nature of human existence. Aurelius, too, fixated on mortality. His Stoic philosophy constantly reminds the reader that life is brief, that death is inevitable, and that only virtue and wisdom hold lasting value. He saw death not as a tragedy, but as a natural conclusion, something to be neither feared nor mourned excessively. His practice of memento mori, remembering death, was meant to encourage people to live with purpose and clarity, focusing only on what truly matters. Both men understood the power of words to transcend time. They knew that while life is temporary, ideas endure. Shakespeare's words are still spoken on stages worldwide, centuries after he first wrote them. Aurelius' reflections continue to be read by those seeking wisdom in a world that often feels overwhelming. Their works remind us that language is a bridge between the past and the future, a way for human beings to communicate across generations. In our own lives, we can draw from both Shakespeare's insight into human emotions and Aurelius' teachings on discipline and acceptance. From Shakespeare, we learn the richness of life, its beauty, tragedy, passion, and complexity. From Aurelius, we learn how to manage that life with wisdom, patience, and strength. Together, they show us how to experience life fully while maintaining a sense of inner stability. In an age where distraction, anxiety, and ambition often overwhelm the mind, Shakespeare and Aurelius offer timeless guidance. Shakespeare reminds us to embrace the complexity of life, to understand our emotions rather than suppress them, and to recognize the power of our choices. Aurelius, in contrast, teaches us to master those emotions, to accept life as it comes, and to find peace in the midst of turmoil. Their words remain relevant because they speak to something fundamental in human nature. People will always struggle with love, ambition, loss, and meaning. They will always wrestle with fate and free will, with power and virtue, with suffering and joy. Shakespeare and Aurelius do not give easy answers, but they give us the language to frame our questions, to articulate our struggles, and to find wisdom in the process. Their greatest legacy is not merely in their words, but in the way those words continue to shape us. They teach us not only how to think, but how to feel, how to endure, and how to understand ourselves and the world around us. Through their writings, they achieve a form of immortality, not through conquest or wealth, but through the timeless power of language and thought.